Welcome to support video number 2 for the performance-based graduation pathways. This video will explain how the performance-based graduation pathway rubrics should be used as a tool to assess the completion of the pathways. The video is intended to be a summary of the more complete materials which are available on the State Board of Education's website. We recognize that there is a lot of text in these videos and invite you to pause to view the different parts at your own pace. In the new performance-based graduation pathway, students can show evidence of meeting the focus standards through a variety of different learning experiences. Students are asked to develop a final product related to their learning experience. This product could be a piece of writing, a performance, a presentation, a portfolio, a report, a film, an animation, or another product that enables the student to show evidence of meeting the learning standards identified. Given the flexibility students have in choosing a final product, it is required that educators use this consistent statewide rubric to assess completion of the pathway. These sets of scoring criteria provide clear guidance to educators about how to evaluate students' final products and how to determine whether the student has successfully completed the pathway. Here is an overview of one of the rubrics. This is for the ELA performance-based graduation pathway. You'll notice that it starts with background information and shifts quickly into directions for the educator. And then after that, there's space for the educator to mark off the evidence that they see that meets each standard or that doesn't meet each standard, and provide students with glows or grows to support them as they move forward. And it ends with a summary table where they can help students see where they either have passed the graduation pathway or where they maybe need to focus their efforts if they would like to resubmit. Assessing a student's final product for performance-based graduation pathways may be completed by one educator or may include multiple people. However, at least one teacher endorsed in the subject area or areas being assessed must be included. This means that an educator endorsed in ELA needs to assess evidence for the ELA pathway, and an educator endorsed in math must assess evidence for the math pathway. The combined performance-based graduation pathway either must be assessed by a teacher endorsed in ELA and another in math, or a teacher who is endorsed in both subject areas. The ELA and math rubrics are each built from a set of focus standards that you see here. The focus standards identify the number and assortment of ELA standards and/or math standards which must be incorporated into the design of the learning experience and assessed within the performance-based graduation pathway. Since there are elements of choice for students in the ELA and math pathways, the rubric asks educators to check off "not selected" to indicate that the student did not submit evidence for that focus standard. The summary table at the end of each rubric also contains space for the educator assessing the student pathway materials to note the choices. When you are assessing the evidence a student provides, you will select yes or no, depending on whether the evidence of the indicator is present in the student's work. Our single point rubric allows educators to assess and document their feedback to the student in a way that is more specific to the learning experience the student chose. Because this graduation pathway is intended to provide validation of that student's ability to meet the standards and not a numerical grade, a yes-no judgment is all that's required. If you select no, you must include a written description of areas for improvement, or grows. These are truly called grows because you believe the student can continue to grow their skills and knowledge throughout the learning experience. And if they do this, they will have evidence of meeting the standard. If you select yes, you must include a written description of the strengths or places where there is strong evidence, or glows. In some cases, if you select yes, there may also be some ways the student could strengthen their evidence. So it's okay to provide both glows and grows. In order to meet the standard, students must provide evidence for each of the indicators listed for that particular standard. For ELA, the student must meet all of the following standards: reading, key ideas and details; writing, text types and purposes; writing, production and distribution of writing; writing, integrate knowledge and ideas; and language, conventions of standard English. For ELA, the student must also choose between meeting the standard for either speaking and listening, presentation of knowledge and ideas, or writing, text types and purposes. Once they have done this, they can pass the graduation pathway. For math, the student must meet the standard for at least 5 out of the 8 mathematical practices and for at least 2 high school level mathematics standards from at least 2 conceptual categories, for a total of 4. In this case, the conceptual categories are limited to number and quantity, algebra, functions, geometry, and statistics and probability. The evidence for the 2 conceptual categories must satisfy locally determined requirements for passing those high school level mathematics standards. Once this is complete, the student can pass the graduation pathway. In both the ELA and math pathways, students are allowed to resubmit their evidence if needed. The feedback in the glows and grows section should be incorporated into their revisions. Be sure to encourage this idea of growth and iteration. As a reminder, you can find more information on the State Board of Education's website. Key tools and resources include graduation pathway documents, overviews, focus standards lists, task models, student checklists, and rubrics. A copy of the recording for a webinar that was hosted by the State Board of Education in order to support districts who are ready to begin offering this pathway option to students, as well as a task model video to support your use of the materials for this pathway as well. If you have any additional questions, you can reach out to Alyssa Muller at alyssa.muller@k12.wa.us.